That's not an approved color, Frank. I didn't even have to turn around. I didn't have to break the loving gaze I was directing at my own front door. That voice, a finely honed instrument that sounded like a blender full of gravel and lemon juice, could only belong to one person. Brenda. I sighed, a long, weary exhalation that was probably also in violation of some noise ordinance. I turned, wiping a speck of non-existent dust from my sleeve. Brenda, good morning. Lovely day for a witch trial, isn't it? She was standing on the sidewalk, a good 20 yards away, as if getting any closer to my house might cause her to break out in hives. She was in full battle rattle, beige visor, beige polo shirt, beige clipboard. Brenda wasn't just a person. She was a palette. The kind of palette you'd use to paint a dentist's waiting room you wanted people to flee from. I'm talking about the door, Frank, she said, tapping her clipboard with a pen. That red. She said red like it was a 4-letter word, which I guess it is. It's cardinal red, I said, stepping back to admire my handiwork. The sun was hitting it just right, and it glowed like a ruby in a mountain of, well, beige. Our neighborhood, Maple Creek Estates, wasn't just a collection of houses. It was a sea of aggressive grega, sad taupe, depression oatmeal, and for the truly adventurous, hint of eggshell. The HOA covenant, an 84-page document that I was convinced Brenda had memorized and recited to herself before bed, was designed to systematically stamp out any spark of human joy. My wife, Sarah, was out of town visiting her sister for the week. I had 48 hours, a case of beer, and a deep-seated need to see a primary color. So I painted the door. It was glorious. According to Section 4, Article B of the Maple Creek Covenant, Brenda recited, her voice rising to its full nasal tyranny, all exterior paint, including but not limited to shutters, trim, and primary entryways, must be selected from the pre-approved list. Cardinal red is not on the list. Brenda, look at this list. I'd seen it. It was 12 shades of brown and 10 shades of white. The list includes forest brown and manor white. This is a suburb, not a damp log. Manor white is an insult to manners. It's the rule, Frank. She offered a smile that didn't involve her eyes. It was the kind of smile a shark gives a seal right before things get messy. I'm sure you understand. We all have to do our part to maintain property values. By ensuring our neighborhood has all the visual charm of a concrete bunker? You'll receive the violation notice by end of day, she said, already turning to leave, her victory assured. It will be taped to the unapproved door. You have 48 hours to comply. Have a wonderful day. I watched her march back to her own identical beige house, her visor glinting. I looked at my beautiful, vibrant, defiant red door. It was a middle finger in a sea of polite handshakes, and I knew, right then and there, she couldn't have it. The letter arrived exactly as promised, taped to the very center of the door with so much packing tape it probably ripped off $1's worth of paint when I removed it. The sheer pettiness was breathtaking. I sat at my kitchen table, sipping a stale coffee and reading the official notice. Maple Creek Homeowners Association. Official Notice of Violation. Violation. Section 4, Article B. Unapproved exterior color. Cardinal red. Property, 1428 Maple Drive. Violator, Frank L. Peterson, fine, $100, $100. I circled it with a pen. It wasn't the money. I mean, I wasn't going to light $100 on fire, but it wasn't going to break me. It was the principle. It was the smug, beige satisfaction I knew Brenda was feeling, sipping her flavorless tea and looking at her flawless, boring lawn. I read the fine print at the bottom. My eyes scanned the legalese. Failure to remedy the violation within 48 hours will result in yada yada further action. And then I saw it. The golden ticket. A fine of $100 will be assessed for the initial violation. Subsequent unremedied violations related to the same infraction are subject to a daily, compounding increase. I read it again, and again. A slow, dangerous, and deeply stupid grin spread across my face. She fined me for the initial violation, I whispered to my cat, Rutherford, who was busy ignoring me from atop the fridge. She fined me for the red door. But the red door is the infraction. Rutherford blinked slowly. But what if the red door goes away? I stood up, my mind racing. What if it's a new infraction, a different infraction? She fined me for this color, but she didn't say anything about a pink one. This was malicious compliance. This was bureaucratic warfare. This was, I realized, going to be the most fun I'd had all year. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed an artist. I needed a co-conspirator. I needed someone young, dumb, and broke. I picked up my phone and dialed. Yo, Uncle Frank. Leo, my boy, how do you feel about making a few $100 for an art installation? There was a suspicious silence on the other end. Leo was my sister's kid, a 20-year-old art student who was perpetually covered in paint and protesting things I didn't understand. Is this legal, Uncle Frank? It's maliciously legal, which is the best kind of legal. What's the gig? Meet me at the hardware store in 20 minutes, I said, grabbing my keys. We're going on a color run. An hour later, Leo and I were standing in the paint aisle, but we weren't looking at the swatches. We were at the Oops tint cart. The clearance section, the island of misfit paints. This one, Leo said, holding up a gallon. The label was smeared, but the color peeking out from under the lid was a shade of pink so violent it hurt my eyes. What is that? I asked, awestruck. I think it was supposed to be Gentle Rose, but it looks more like Barbie's dream car had a chemical fire. It's perfect, I said, putting it in the cart. We grabbed 6 more. A pukey green, a construction site orange, a yellow that hummed, a purple that screamed, and a blue that was deeply, deeply sad. 7 cans of pure, unadulterated spite. Brenda's gonna have an aneurysm, Leo said, grinning. That's the spirit, kid, I said, clapping him on the back. That's the spirit. Day 1, Monday. Barbie's dream car. Pink. We were up at 5 a.m. It was still dark, the only light coming from the identical Covenant-approved porch lights. We were a 2-man covert ops team, armed with rollers and a gallon of hot magenta. Dude, this paint is thick, Leo whispered, struggling to get it to spread. It's not paint, Leo, I whispered back, rolling a giant pink stripe down the middle of my beautiful red door. It's a statement. By 5:45 a.m. it was done. The red was gone. In its place was a door so bright, so fluorescent, so unapologetically pink that I was pretty sure it was visible from space. It was the single ugliest thing I had ever seen in my entire life. I loved it. I made a pot of coffee, grabbed the morning paper, and sat on my front porch, just as the sun began to rise. I waited. At 6:15 a.m., on the dot, Brenda's garage door rumbled open. She emerged, clad in a beige jogging suit, ready to power walk her way to neighborhood tyranny. She bent over to grab her newspaper from the driveway. When she stood up, she saw it. It was beautiful. She didn't move. She just froze, one hand still holding the newspaper. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. She looked like a fish trying to understand long division. I took a loud, obnoxious slurp of my coffee. "Morning, Brenda," I chirped. Her head snapped toward me. Her eyes were wide, the visor doing nothing to hide her abject horror. "Frank, what is that?" Her voice cracked. It was a glorious sound. "Just complying with the notice," I said cheerfully, gesturing with my mug. "The red door is gone. 48 hours, you said. I'm early. Do you like this one better? It's called Hot Magenta. Really opens up the entryway, don't you think?" She didn't speak. She just stared, her face cycling through several new, unapproved shades of red. She pointed a trembling finger at the door, then at me, then back at the door. That is not on the list?" I offered. "Gosh, you're right. Silly me. I'll have to get that letter from you then." She let out a sound like a strangled teapot, threw her newspaper on the ground, and stormed back into her house. By noon, a new letter was taped to my door. This one used electrical tape. Violation. Unapproved color. Hot magenta. Fine. $200,000. The war was on. Day 2. Tuesday. Toxic sludge, green. "This one," Leo said, prying open the lid with a screwdriver, "is called Hint of Lime." I think it was a lie. It was 5 a.m. again. The pink door, which had already caused 2 separate neighbors to visibly flinch while walking their dogs, was about to get a makeover. Leo was right. This wasn't a hint of lime. This was the whole lime, skin and all, put through a wood chipper and mixed with nuclear waste. We slapped it on. This paint was even worse than the pink. It was thin and watery, and it dried with a sickly, damp-looking sheen. "If Monday was Barbie's dream car," I muttered, stepping back, "Tuesday is Barbie's industrial accident." "It's got character," Leo offered, trying to be supportive. "It's got a disease, Leo." I did my morning ritual. Coffee, porch, paper. This time, I didn't have to wait long. Brenda was prepared. At 6:10 a.m., she didn't come out to jog. She came out with her clipboard and a digital camera. She didn't even look at me. She just marched to the edge of her lawn, raised the camera, and began taking pictures, the flash firing aggressively in the pre-dawn gloom. "You're not even going to say good morning?" I called out. She ignored me, narrating into a small, handheld voice recorder. "Tuesday, 6:11 a.m., property 1528. The unapproved hot magenta has been painted over with a frankly nauseating shade of green. Subject Frank Peterson is on the porch, observing me. He appears smug. "Get my good side, Brenda," I yelled. "Make sure the light captures the sheen. It's very moist-looking, don't you think?" She clicked off the recorder, glared at me, and marched back inside. This time, the notice was an email. I guess she didn't want to get too close to the toxic sludge. Subject: Stop. Dear Mr. Peterson, this is your formal notice. Your green door is in violation. Fine, $400,000. Your continued belligerence is noted. Sincerely, Brenda, HOA President. Belligerence, I said to Rutherford. She thinks this is belligerence. We haven't even gotten to the weird colors yet. The real victory of Tuesday, however, wasn't the email. It was at 4 p.m. I was out front, pretending to weed my flower bed, when my next-door neighbor, Mr. Henderson, shuffled out to get his mail. Henderson was at least 80, a man of few words, who spent most of his time watering his collection of lawn gnomes. He was, in every way, a beige siding kind of guy. He shuffled past my house, glanced at the glowing green monstrosity I called a door, and then looked at me. He stopped. He gave me a long, appraising look. Then, very slowly, he raised his hand, gave me a small, approving nod, and continued on his way. It was a sign. An alliance. The beige front was cracking. Day 3, Wednesday. Traffic cone orange. Okay, this one, Leo said, stirring the can, is actually safety orange, like for construction sites. I think it might be reflective. Better and better, I said. Hump day. People need a little visual pick-me-up. By 5:30 a.m., my house looked like a DOT project. The green was gone, replaced by an orange so bright, so offensively vibrant, that it seemed to vibrate against the beige siding. It was the color of warnings, of bad decisions, of cheap cheese puffs. I settled onto the porch. I was starting to enjoy these mornings. It was like a very, very stupid stakeout. At 7 o'clock a.m., there was still no sign of Brenda. No email. No camera. Nothing. She's changing tactics, I mumbled into my coffee. She's adapting. At 7:30 a.m., I found out how. A police cruiser rolled slowly down the street and parked right in front of my house. My stomach did a little tap dance against my ribs. Okay. This was an escalation I hadn't anticipated. A fine is one thing. Getting arrested for assault with a bad color is another. 2 officers got out. One was older, with a mustache that had seen better decades and a deep, world-weary sigh already built into his posture. The other was young, crisp, and looked like he was desperately trying not to laugh. The older one, Miller, according to his name tag, ambled up my walkway. The younger one, Chen, hung back by the sidewalk. "Morning," Miller said. His voice was as tired as his mustache. "Sir, you Mr. Peterson?" "That's me, officer," I said, putting on my most law-abiding victim face. "Something wrong?" "Sir, we got a call about a property dispute." He glanced at the door, and I saw his eyebrow twitch. "A public nuisance call." Right on cue, Brenda's front door opened, and she marched onto her lawn, clipboard in hand. She'd been waiting. "Officers!" she called out, her voice dripping with false concern. "Thank goodness you're here. He's creating a public nuisance. It's distracting drivers. That color, it's a hazard." Officer Miller looked at the door. He looked at me. He looked at Brenda. He looked back at the door. "Ma'am, that's just a very orange door." "It's safety orange," I supplied helpfully. "I'm just a man trying to be safe. Is safety a crime now, officer?" "He's mocking me," Brenda shrieked. "And he's mocking the covenant." "Ma'am," Miller said, rubbing the bridge of his nose, "the covenant is a civil matter. I can't arrest a man for that." Officer Chen, who had been studying my house, spoke up, his voice quiet but clear. "Sir, with all due respect to the complainant, your beige house is blending in so well with the other beige houses, I'd say this bright door is actually increasing visibility. If anything, it's a safety feature." I beamed. "Thank you, Officer Chen. I knew it. It's practical." Miller shot Chen a look that said, "You are not helping." He turned back to me. "Sir, is there any chance you could, I don't know, paint it a color that doesn't look like it's screaming?" I'm just a man trying to find a color my HOA president likes, officer, I said, the picture of wounded innocence. Every day I try, and every day she finds me. I'm starting to think she just doesn't want me to comply. Brenda was sputtering, her face a lovely shade of cardinal red. Miller sighed, the sound of a man who'd rather be dealing with actual crime. Look, there's nothing we can do. It's an HOA issue. Ma'am, please stop calling 911 about paint. He looked at me. Sir, just maybe pick a darker color? The paperwork is killing me. He handed me a card. Call us if you have any actual problems. They got back in their car and drove away. Chen was visibly shaking with suppressed laughter as they pulled off. I gave Brenda a little two-finger salute. She looked like she was going to spontaneously combust. The email hit my inbox 5 minutes later. Subject: You will regret this. Mr. Peterson, your behavior is appalling. Calling the police was a necessary step as your installation is a clear and present danger. Fine, $800. A new fine has been added for wasting community resources. Police. I am in contact with the HOA's legal counsel. She's making up fines now, I announced to Rutherford. This is where the gloves come off. Day 4, Thursday. Highlighter. Yellow. If Wednesday was safety orange, Thursday was occupational hazard yellow. I think my eyes are bleeding, Leo said, squinting as he applied the last coat. It's not that bad, I lied. It was that bad. It was a yellow so bright, so acidic, it seemed to be plugged into an electrical socket. It hummed. It throbbed. It was the color of pure, weaponized caffeine. Leo, in a fit of artistic inspiration, had also used some of the leftover orange to paint a small, subtle biohazard symbol in the bottom corner. Nice touch, I'd said. I was on the porch, coffee in hand, when the white van pulled up. It was 10 a.m. I'd already received my morning fine, $1,600. Final warning, lien proceedings, all caps. But this was new. The van was blank, save for small lettering on the door. Suburban Management Solutions. A man in a navy blue polo shirt and khaki pants got out. He had a clipboard, but it wasn't a beige one. It was a serious, heavy-duty metal one. He looked like he ate covenants for breakfast. He looked like his name was Todd. He marched up my walkway, completely unfazed by the retina searing yellow, and gave 2 sharp professional raps on the door. I opened it. Mr. Frank Peterson? He asked. His voice was flat. Just Frank is fine. And you are? I'm Todd, he said. Of course he was. I'm with Suburban Management Solutions. The HOA has contracted us to remedy your door situation. Remedy? I leaned against the door frame, trying to look casual. You mean paint it sad taupe? Todd sighed. It was a different kind of sigh than Officer Miller's. This was the sigh of a man who wasn't paid enough to deal with petty suburban warlords, but just enough to follow orders. Look, man, the work order just says paint door. I've got a can of Forest Brown in the van. We can do this easy, or we can do this hard. Hard? What's hard, Todd? Are you going to rough me up with a paint roller? Hard is, you let me paint the door, and this all goes away. Easy is, well, easy is the same, just with less talking. He took a step forward, gesturing for me to move. I didn't budge. You're on my property, Todd, and I haven't hired you. My door, my paint. You and your Suburban Management Solutions are, by definition, trespassing. Todd's eye twitched. The HOA covenants allow for contracted maintenance to correct violations if the homeowner refuses. Refuses? I haven't refused. I've been trying to comply. It's not my fault Brenda's so picky. Besides, I haven't received proper, certified notice of this contracted maintenance. So, as I said, you're trespassing. I'm not leaving until this door is brown, Todd said, crossing his arms. A classic standoff. Okay, I said. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. Let's see what my new friends at the police department think. I pulled up my contacts and conspicuously held the phone so he could see the name I was about to press. Officer Miller, that's a good guy. He was just here yesterday. Hates paperwork. I bet he really hates paperwork for a trespassing painter. I pulled the business card Miller had given me from my wallet and waved it. He even gave me his card, direct line, said to call if I had any actual problems. Todd stared at the card. He looked at me. He looked at the screaming yellow door. He looked at his can of Forest Brown sitting in the van. This is ridiculous, he muttered. I agree, I said. Brenda's out of control. He let out a sharp, angry breath. Fine, you win this round, smartass. But we will be billing the HOA for our time, and they will be billing you. Put it on my tab, I said, giving him a little wave. He stormed back to his van, slammed the door, and peeled out. I turned to Leo, who had been watching from the living room window. Leo, my boy, we've repelled a ground invasion. That was awesome, he said, giving me a high five. What's next? We're running out of weekdays. I looked at the final warning email on my phone. The fine was now $1,600. The total was adding up. I was at $3,100. Tomorrow, Leo, I said, a dangerous glint in my eye. Tomorrow, we go fabulous. Day 5, Friday. Glitter bomb, purple. It was Friday, end of the week. If we were going to be fined into oblivion, we were going to do it with style. This, Leo said, holding up a gallon of deep, royal purple, is the base coat. The base coat? Trust me. By 6 a.m., the door was a majestic purple. It was honestly the best color yet. Now, Leo said, holding up a large canvas bag. The pièce de résistance. He unzipped it. It was full of glitter, not just one kind. Silver glitter, gold glitter, big hexagonal glitter, fine iridescent glitter. Oh, Leo, I breathed. You're a genius. While the purple paint was still wet, we began to throw glitter at it. Handfuls, shovelfuls. We were like deranged wood nymphs sowing seeds of pure chaos. It stuck to the paint, to the siding, to our hair, to the lawn. When the sun came up, it's magnificent, I whispered. It was horrifying. It was like a 70s disco, and a 5th-grade art project had a very, very fabulous baby. The sun hit it, and the door didn't just shine, it exploded. It cast little rainbow-colored flecks all over the porch. I was pretty sure a passing pilot had to divert. The neighborhood reaction was immediate. This was no longer just an odd door. This was an event. Mrs. Gable from 3 houses down, who I'd never spoken to, walked by, pretending to check her mail, and I saw her pull out her phone to take a picture. By 3 p.m., a small group of teenagers was on the sidewalk, taking selfies. "It's the HOA war door," one of them yelled. By 4:30 p.m., a white van from Channel 5 News was cruising slowly down the street. It didn't stop, but it slowed. The cameraman was filming out the passenger window. I was famous. I was a local legend. I was also, I was pretty sure, about to be sued into the Stone Age. All day, I waited. I checked my email. I checked the front door. Nothing. No letter. No email. No clipboard. No Todd. No cops. Just silence. Brenda's house was dark. Her blinds were drawn. "This is bad, Leo," I said, as we watched the news van round the corner. "This is very, very bad. Silence is worse than yelling. She's plotting. She's building a bomb." "Or," Leo said, "maybe she gave up?" I looked at the glittering purple monstrosity that was my front door. "Nobody gives up on this, kid. This is the painting a target on your own house level of stupid. No. She's planning a finale. Day 6, Saturday. Chaos. Polka dots. I was nervous all night. The silence was deafening. "She's letting me hang myself," I told Rutherford, pacing the kitchen at 4 a.m. "She's letting me build the case against me. One more door, one more nail in the coffin. What do we do?" Leo, who had crashed on the couch, stumbled into the kitchen. "We go out with a bang, Uncle Frank." "What kind of bang?" "We use everything." An hour later, we were standing in front of the glitter-purple door, surrounded by the dregs of the week's paint. "It's a masterpiece," Leo said, stepping back. It was abstract expressionism. It was a clown's fever dream. We'd used the Barbie pink as a new base coat, right over the glitter, which gave it a horrifyingly crunchy texture. Then, we'd used the toxic green, safety orange, and highlighter yellow to make giant, sloppy, overlapping polka dots. It was, without a doubt, the ugliest thing any human being had ever created on purpose. It was a visual scream. I sat on the porch. The coffee tasted bitter. I was just waiting for the axe to fall. At 9 a.m., it fell. Brenda's front door opened. She wasn't in her jogging suit. She wasn't in her polo. She was wearing a navy blue blazer. She looked official. She wasn't carrying a clipboard. She was carrying a single heavy stock manila envelope. She walked across her lawn, across the street, and right up my walkway. She didn't flinch at the polka dots. She just stood at the bottom of the steps, her face as calm and cold as a tundra. "Frank," she said. Her voice was flat. "Brenda," I replied, my heart sinking. "Like the new look? It's abstract expressionism, very postmodern." "Emergency HOA meeting," she said, holding up the envelope. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at the community pool. You will be there." "Or what?" I said, trying to sound brave. "Or we'll vote without you." She placed the envelope on the bottom step. "This is your official summons. We will be holding a vote to place an immediate and binding lien on your house for the cumulative fines." What fines?" She smiled, that dead-eyed shark smile. "Let's see. $100 for the red, $200 for the pink, $400 for the green, $800 for the orange, plus the $1,600 for the yellow. That's $3,100. You didn't fine me for the purple. Or this one," I said, pointing at the polka dot horror. "Oh, don't worry," she said. "We'll be adding those in at the meeting, along with legal fees, the bill from Suburban Management Solutions, and a new community-wide special assessment to cover the emotional trauma. By my count, you'll be looking at north of $5,000, Frank." She turned. 10 a.m. Don't be late." She walked away, her back straight, her victory total. I looked at the polka dot door. It didn't look funny anymore. It looked expensive. It looked really, really stupid. "Leo," I called out. "I think we're in trouble." Day 7, Sunday, the Brown Reckoning. The community pool was the perfect, sterile, suburban backdrop for a public execution. The entire HOA was there. All 30 Greiga houses were represented. People I'd only ever seen checking their mail were sitting in plastic lounge chairs, sipping watered-down lemonade from a dispenser, all looking at me with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. I was the circus. I was the fool. Brenda was at a small lectern she'd set up by the deep end, which felt appropriate. She had a poster board on an easel. She was in her element. "Friends, neighbors," she began, her voice resonating with false gravity. "We are here today because of a threat. A threat to our community standards, a threat to our property values, and a threat to the very decency of Maple Creek." She unveiled the poster board. It was a collage, photos of all 6 doors. My week of shame. This circus," she said, pointing at the glitter-purple one, "is the work of one man, Mr. Frank Peterson." All eyes on me. I tried to look casual, but I'm pretty sure I just looked constipated. Leo was next to me, looking pale. "For 6 days," Brenda continued, her voice rising, "Mr. Peterson has mocked our bylaws. He has laughed in the face of our covenant. He has wasted police resources. He has brought news vans to our quiet street. He has forced us to look at this." She gestured dramatically to the polka dot photo. Someone in the back gasped. "The fines, as of this morning, total $100, she said. "I am proposing we add an additional $2,000 in punitive damages and legal fees, for a total of $5,100. We will vote to place an immediate lien on 1428 Maple Drive for willful, malicious, and continued non-compliance. All in favor?" Hands went up. A lot of hands. Mr. Henderson, my gassy gnome neighbor, kept his hands in his lap, but he was one of the few. "Wait," I said. My voice was too loud. Brenda smiled. "Mr. Peterson, do you have something to say before the vote is finalized?" "I do, actually." I stood up, holding a very familiar 84-page document. "I'd love to pay, Brenda. I really would. But you've made it impossible. You see, last night I couldn't sleep. So I did a little light reading. I read the covenant, all 84 pages of it, especially the part you kept quoting at me." I walked to the front. Section 4, Article B. As you said, all exterior modifications must be approved. My cardinal red door? That was a modification. Fair enough? You got me. $100, fine. I'll pay it. Brenda's smile faltered. "And the other $5,000. Ah, well, that's the interesting part." I flipped a few pages. You see, when I painted the door hot magenta, that wasn't a modification. That was compliance. I was remedying the cardinal red infraction. I painted over it. The infraction was gone. The hot magenta door, that was a new infraction, which you fined me for. "Exactly," she said. "A new violation." "Right, which I also remedied," I said. "And then I remedied the green one, and the orange one, and the yellow one. You can't charge me compounding fines for a single infraction when I keep remedying the infraction. You have to start over at $100 every single day. Your $3,100 in fines is, according to your own rules, actually $600. The crowd murmured. Brenda's face went white. That's preposterous." "But that's not even the best part," I said, my confidence surging. I was worried about the polka dots. And the glitter, I'll admit it. But then I found Article C, subsection 9. Temporary holiday or event-based decorations are permitted for up to 14 days, provided they do not, etc., etc. Brenda, you've been so busy with your clipboard, you clearly forgot to ask what I was celebrating. I clapped Leo on the back. He looked confused. Then his eyes lit up as he caught on. My nephew here, I announced, is in his final year of art school. This whole week was his final project. An art exhibition. It's called, Suburban Despair, a 7-day study, Leo chimed in, his voice strong. It's a multimedia transient installation exploring the themes of beige conformity. An art installation, I said, letting the words hang in the air. Temporary, event-based decoration. Completely exempt, all of it. Brenda was sputtering. That's a lie. You can't. Art, that's not a holiday. Says holiday or event, I said, tapping the page. This was an event. And you, Brenda, you've been a wonderful participant. In fact, your angry letters are going to be part of the display. The meeting was dissolving. People were whispering, looking at Brenda not with admiration, but with confusion. And then, from the back, a quiet voice spoke up. And while we're reading the covenant, it was Mr. Henderson. He was standing up, holding his own copy. Brenda, he said, I was just reading Article 12, the one about fiscal transparency. It says the HOA board's quarterly budget must be posted in the community newsletter. And I've been looking, and I haven't seen a budget posted in 9 months. Brenda's blood drained from her face. And, Henderson continued, this pool, it's been closed for emergency maintenance since May. It's almost July. Where are our dues going, Brenda? The paint on that man's door is obnoxious, but at least we can see it. The dam broke. Yeah, yelled Mrs. Gable. My keycard for the tennis court hasn't worked in a month. The potholes on Maple Drive are deep enough to lose a small dog in, shouted someone else. The mob had turned. The jury was no longer looking at me. They were all looking at Brenda. The lean vote was completely, totally forgotten. Now, if you'll excuse me, I said quietly, I have a door to paint. 1 week later, I was on my lawn. The air was warm, the sky was clear, and my house was quiet. The HOA was in glorious chaos. Brenda was facing an audit. An emergency election was being held. Mr. Henderson was, somehow, the interim president. I heard a car pull up. It was Leo. Hey, Uncle Frank, he said, walking over. He looked at the door. So, what's the plan? We never got to do zebra stripes, or a full-on Jackson Pollock. I dipped my roller in the tray and applied a smooth, even coat. Nah, I'm done. I think I've made my point. Leo looked at the can of paint sitting on the grass. His eyes went wide. Wait, is that Forest Brown? The one and only, I said, rolling on another thick, boring, covenant-approved stripe. But why? Leo was aghast. You won. You could paint it anything. You could paint a mural of her stupid face on it. I stepped back to admire my work. The door was a dull, muddy, aggressively boring brown. It was, without a doubt, the ugliest thing I had ever seen. It was bland. It was lifeless. It was beige. I smiled. You're right, kid, I said. I won. I looked across the street. Brenda's blinds were still drawn. But I knew she was in there. And I knew she'd have to look at that door every single day, She'd have to look at that perfect, compliant, forest brown door and know that it was the ugliest symbol of her failure. It tasted a whole lot like victory. A very, very beige victory.